No one knows exactly how he got there. Maybe he wandered too far. Maybe something scared him and he lost his way. All we know is that Saebyeok, a fragile kitten no more than a few weeks old, fell into a cold, wet storm drain, a place no baby should ever be. There, trapped and helpless, he cried. Not for food, not for comfort, but for his mother. Over and over, he called out into the empty tunnel. His tiny voice echoed against the concrete walls, growing hoarser by the hour. He didn't understand what had happened. He only knew that she was gone and that he needed her. Hours passed, maybe days. The world above him kept turning. Cars rushed by. People hurried on. And yet, down in that drain, time stood still. Then, someone heard him. It was faint at first, a sound most people would have ignored. But this passerby stopped. They listened, and when they realised what it was, a kitten crying out from deep below, they didn't walk away. Rescue workers were called. The storm drain was narrow, wet, and dangerous, but none of that mattered. A life was down there, a life worth saving. Carefully, with ropes, lights, and trembling hands, they reached down into the darkness and pulled Saebyeok into the world again. He was shaking, soaking wet. His fur matted, his body cold, his eyes wide with panic. He didn't fight. He didn't meow. He simply collapsed into the warmth of a rescuer's arms, as if finally giving in to exhaustion. At the clinic, the veterinarians moved quickly. They dried him, cleaned him, warmed him. He wasn't injured physically, but emotionally, he was shattered. He kept looking around, still calling out for the mother he had lost. His cries were softer now, unsure, as though he was beginning to understand that she was not coming back. The rescue team named him Saebyeok, meaning dawn in Korean, a name filled with hope for a new beginning. That very day marked the start of a 36-week journey, a journey of healing, growth, and trust. The first weeks were the hardest. Saebyeok didn't know how to accept love. He flinched when touched, hid in corners, stared at walls. He didn't play, he didn't purr. He was just there, existing. But the team never gave up. Every morning they greeted him with soft voices and warm hands. Every night they tucked him into soft blankets and hummed lullabies meant to soothe his little heart. They fed him patiently, waited for him to approach them, and offered gentle strokes whenever he dared to come close. And slowly, like sunlight creeping through a closed window, Saebyeok began to open. It started with a glance, a moment when he looked up at a rescuer and didn't look away. Then came the first soft purr, so quiet it could only be felt against the skin. Then, a tiny paw reaching out, not in fear, but in curiosity. Each new behaviour was a miracle. As the weeks passed, Saebyeok learned how to play, how to chase feathers and climb cat trees. He discovered that laps were warm and hands could be comforting. He began to nap in the open instead of hiding. He started to meow, and not with panic, but with joy. The rescue team became his new family. They weren't his biological mother, but they gave him everything she would have: safety, warmth, guidance, love. And Saebyeok in turn gave them his trust. As he grew, so did his confidence. His fur became sleek and glossy, his eyes bright and curious. He loved to explore, but always returned to the arms that had saved him. He had become a healthy, strong, affectionate young cat, a far cry from the trembling kitten pulled from that storm drain. After 36 weeks of nurturing, Saebyeok had blossomed. He no longer lived in fear. He no longer cried for someone who wasn't there. He had found his place in the world not in the darkness below, but in the warmth of hearts who had chosen him, fought for him, and never stopped believing in him. His transformation was nothing short of magical. When his story was shared online and in local newspapers, the world responded with overwhelming kindness. People from all over sent love, support, and thanks, not only to Saebyeok, but to the heroes who had refused to let one small, frightened life be lost to the shadows. Today, Saebyeok's life is filled with sunbeams, soft beds, and gentle hands. He no longer looks over his shoulder or hides in fear. He stretches in the morning light, lounges by windows and rubs affectionately against the legs of those he loves. He is whole, he is safe, he is loved. And he is a reminder to all of us that no life is too small to matter, and no beginning is too dark for the dawn to break through. If Saebyeok's story moved you, please share it. Let it be a message to the world that every soul deserves a chance, that behind every rescue is not just an animal saved, but a ripple of compassion that spreads far and wide. By sharing his journey, you help light the way for others like him, those still waiting in the dark, calling out for someone to care. Be that someone. Be the dawn. He had every reason to fear humans. Once someone's pet, Teddy was abandoned and left to wander the streets alone. For months he survived as a stray, with no shelter to sleep under and no familiar voice calling his name. But unlike many animals hardened by life on the streets, Teddy's spirit remained unbroken. He greeted strangers not with suspicion, but with hope. The volunteers first saw Teddy one quiet afternoon. His body was thin, his fur dirty and tangled, crawling with ticks. But what stood out was his eyes. They were soft, trusting. Somehow, even after being cast aside, he looked at people with the same gentle gaze that says, "I believe in you." Approaching him was easy. No running, no fear, just a calm little cat who welcomed touch like he had been waiting for it. A little bit of food was all it took to guide him into a carrier. He didn't resist. Maybe he knew, deep inside, that his life was about to change. His first meal after being rescued was simple, wet food from a can. But to Teddy it must have tasted like a feast. He devoured it with enthusiasm, licking every last bit as if afraid it might vanish. Dehydrated from weeks of poor nutrition, he was given extra wet food to help him recover. 2 jars of pâté later, his belly full and his heart a little lighter, Teddy curled up and began to drift into a peaceful sleep. Nothing around him made him nervous. The unfamiliar smells, the sounds of other animals, the hands that cleaned his face, he accepted them all with quiet grace. His little tail wagged softly, a sign of comfort and trust. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was beginning to live, and he loved to be loved. Teddy, like most cats, adored affection. He leaned into every touch, pressing his head against volunteers' hands, purring deeply when someone scratched behind his ears or kissed his tiny pink nose. He had found his people, and he wasn't shy about asking for more. But life as a stray had left its mark. Teddy's fur was full of dirt and knots, and he was covered in ticks. The volunteers knew what had to come next: bath time. Like most cats, Teddy was not a fan. From the moment the water touched his fur, he let out a loud, dramatic meow, as if to say, "How could you betray me like this?" It took 4 rinses to even begin to clean his coat. His fur was still tangled afterward, but his skin could finally breathe. He might not have liked the bath, but afterward, wrapped in a soft towel, he looked relieved, like a weight had been lifted. Over the next few days, Teddy blossomed. He got his appetite back. His eyes looked brighter. He sought out affection constantly, nudging his rescuers with his head, curling up in their laps and talking to them in his soft sing-song meow. He still hated baths. Every time he made his displeasure known with dramatic cries that echoed through the rescue centre. But that was part of his charm, his personality, his voice, his gentle rebellion. Teddy didn't need hospitalization. He didn't have any serious illnesses or injuries. In many ways, he was one of the lucky ones. His journey to recovery was smooth, filled with warmth, love, and a growing bond between him and the humans who refused to see him as just another stray. In just over a week, Teddy had gone from an abandoned cat to a beloved companion. He had become part of the rescue team's daily lives, a presence that brought smiles, laughter, and comfort. They scratched his head the way he liked. They kissed his nose, which he always welcomed with a little squint of his eyes, and he gave back more than anyone could have expected. He gave them his trust. How strange, isn't it? A creature who had been mistreated, ignored and discarded still had so much love to give. While so many humans shut down when hurt, Teddy opened up. He didn't carry anger, he didn't seek revenge, he simply wanted connection. So, it begs the question, who's the real angel here? The one who abandoned him, or the one who, after all that, still chooses to treat humans gently? Teddy's journey reminds us that animals are not disposable. They remember love, they long for safety, and they forgive more easily than we do. Their resilience is astonishing, their capacity for affection is endless. Teddy will soon be adopted into a forever home, somewhere warm, kind, and full of soft hands that will scratch his head and stroke his back. A place where he'll never be abandoned again, where every meow will be answered, and every bath, no matter how dramatic, will end with a warm towel and a gentle hug. Until then, he is living peacefully with his rescuers, eating well, resting safely, and enjoying every moment of the love he has finally found. Teddy's story may seem small in the grand scheme of things, but to him, it was everything. And it doesn't end here. There are so many cats like Teddy, gentle souls still waiting in the shadows, hoping for someone to stop, to notice, and to care. Your one like or share might seem simple, but it could be the spark that saves another life. So please, if his story touched your heart, pass it on. Let Teddy's kindness inspire more kindness. Let his journey be a reminder that no matter how dark the past, there is always hope for a gentle future. See you in the next rescue story. Until then, let's keep being the kind of humans animals like Teddy believe we can be.